Then Deva Pravarao, two beautiful demigods, Chaturbhujao, with 4 arms, Shamo, blackish, Kishorao, quite young, Aruna, reddish, Ambuja, lotus flower, Ikshanao, with eyes, Sitao, situated, Avashtabhya, holding, Gadam, clubs, Suvasasao, with nice garments, Kirita, helmets, Hara, necklaces, Angada, bracelets, Charu, beautiful, Kundalao, with earrings. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Shiva Prabhupada Ki Jai. Dhruva Maharaj saw 2 very beautiful associates of Lord Vishnu in the plain. They had 4 hands and a blackish bodily luster. They were very youthful, and their eyes were just like reddish lotus flowers. They held clubs in their hands, and they were dressed in very attractive garments with helmets, and were decorated with necklaces, bracelets, and earrings. Purport. The inhabitants of Vishnu Loka are of the same bodily feature as Lord Vishnu, and they also hold club, conch shell, lotus flower, disc. In this verse, it is distinctly stated that they had 4 hands and were nicely dressed. The description of their bodily decorations corresponds exactly to that of Vishnu. So, the 2 uncommon personalities who descended from the airplane came directly from Vishnu Loka, or the planet where Lord Vishnu lives. Again, the verse reads, Tatranu Deva Pravarao Chaturbhujao Shamo Kishora Arunam Bujikshanao Stitao Avastavyagadam Suvasasao Kirita Harangada Charu Kundalao. Dhruva Maharaj saw 2 very beautiful associates of Lord Vishnu in the plain. They had 4 hands and a blackish bodily luster. They were very youthful, and their eyes were just like reddish lotus flowers. They held clubs in their hands, and they were dressed in very attractive garments with helmets, and were decorated with necklaces, bracelets, and earrings. Mukam karoti bachalam mangamanai tegriva kripadam mande shri gurundinatalam. So you have in your restaurant those very beautiful fish. And so if you were to, you also have video camera. So if you had another video camera and you pointed one video camera at the aquarium from the front and the other video camera you put on the side, taking a side view, and you had 2 monitors. And the 2 monitors were in a different room. So if you did not know, if you had no information that these 2 monitors were actually showing the same aquarium, then by looking at the 2 monitors, you would think that their cameras are on different aquariums, because one is focusing from the front and the other from the side. So from the front, then you'll be seeing the fish swimming this way. From the side, they'd be going this way and this way, coming at you and going away from you. From the front, they would be going this way, like that. So it would appear like 2 different aquariums. And least it would take you some time. You might look at both and gradually understand that the fish are the same, but from two different points of view. But initially, our normal response would be, oh, this is two different video projections from two different aquariums. So, like that, you see, the problem that we have with information such as this, we're hearing today about residents of Vishnu Loka, their forms, their potencies. What to speak, of course, these are the eternal servants of Lord Vishnu, what to speak of the Lord himself. So like that, we are now only able to comprehend these descriptions within our three-dimensional frame, or you can even say 4 dimensions if you include time. They say there are 4 dimensions. That there is depth, and there is height, and there is width. This is 3 dimensions. And then all of this is being moved through time. And so things change. So this is what we understand to be reality, 4 dimensions. Now, we've just heard this example with the fish, the video of the fish. Now you see, we have difficulty to recognize that the two monitors are of the same aquarium, because that is 3 dimensions or 4 dimensions reduced to 2 or 3 if you include time. In other words, the depth is no longer there. We're just able to see the height and the width. So as soon as the dimensions are reduced, then we start to become bewildered. This example shows you how something in 3 dimensions, or 4 again, if it is reduced, let's say 1 dimension is taken away, as this analogy shows, then immediately it becomes bewildering to us. So, because I have a calm conference of questions and answers, so many of the questions of devotees, they come out of this problem. That the Bhagavatam is describing that it's not 1 dimension more than what we're experiencing now. It is unlimited dimensions more. The modern scientists and mathematicians, theoretical scientists, they have, in calculations, they have conceived of 20 higher dimensions than the 4 that we know. And they sometimes on videos, or I mean to say on computer screens, they construct objects in higher dimensions, and they turn, and as they turn, it doesn't make sense. It's inconceivable to the mind, because as they're turning, then you're noticing how such an object just simply couldn't exist, because features seem to appear and disappear at the same time. The object, the whole form of the object as it is turning, it no longer relates to what you saw before. It's just something completely, it's as if it's being invented as it is turning, as if the artist is redrawing it as it turns. But mathematically anyway, such a thing can exist in higher dimensions and would make sense to us if we could perceive higher, and we're only speaking of material dimensions. So, as I said, the theoretical scientists, mathematicians, they have conceived of 20 dimensions. But here we're having to accommodate
in our four-dimensional space a description that goes far, far beyond even those 20, which is already completely bewildering for us. This is the transcendental dimension. So one must learn to appreciate this fact. Sometimes, like devotees, they very often ask about contradictions. They say, why is it in this verse it says this, and in that verse? This is just like the two video monitors, Why is it here? If they're both the same, then why does this one look like that and that one look like this? They're both the same thing. But because we're in, these monitors are only showing us less dimensions than the actual reality from two different angles, they appear to be different. But still, devotees never give up inquiring into these questions. And that's good, because it shows that one is serious to understand. But the thing is, you cannot understand in this, four-dimensional so-called reality, four-dimensional limitation of consciousness. These things cannot be understood. You cannot actually understand this description of the Vishnu Dutas who have come from Vaikuntha to bring Dhruva Maharaj back home, back to Godhead. You cannot understand that. What can we do? We can respect, we can appreciate, we can try to understand, knowing that the only real way that one will ever be able to understand this, even slightly, in truth, is for the heart, the consciousness, to become purified by the process of devotional service. No amount of mental speculation is ever going to actually bring us to the tattva, to the truth. By mental speculation, again, you can only, it is like I said, the scientists who make a computer image of something in higher dimensions. That's the most you can do. You can satisfy yourself by making some kind of image in your mind and turn it, and you might like it, but if you try to explain it to someone else, they will become a little confused. You see, this is okay to satisfy our mind. But in order to really understand, then one actually has to come to that level of higher dimensional perception, higher dimensional consciousness. And that is only part, just like these higher dimensions, they're levels of reality. And factually speaking, because the same conception of higher dimensions is actually presented in the Vedic literature. The idea is there in Vedanta Sutra, and actually there is mentioned 14 higher material dimensions up to Brahmaloka. And every one of them is protected by a deity, by a demigod. So you cannot go from one to the other. That is why, that is the rationale for demigod worship in the Vedic literature. That is the actual reason for demigod worship. On either path, the path which is known as Pitriyana, one wants to go into the higher regions to enjoy on higher and higher levels of sensory possibility. You see? So those are like the persons who want to enter the moon planet after this lifetime. So or on some other heavenly region. So they're religious. Their intention is to enjoy. And then there are those who are mystics, who actually, they want to go higher and higher and higher and higher, and finally come to the highest platform, mystic perfection, full mystic perfection, liberation, Siddha it's called. So, in either case, one has to propitiate, one has to satisfy demigods on the way. And having satisfied, this is all described in Vedanta Sutra. For those who take this step-by-step method, then having satisfied one demigod, then he ushers you into that realm. This is also described in Bhagavad Gita, also, in the end of the 8th chapter, is it? Where Lord Krishna speaks of departing by day and by night. And so those, these are somewhat puzzling verses. Lord Krishna is speaking about departing by the light or by the darkness, by the smoke, by the fortnight, the bright fortnight, or the dark fortnight, and so on and so forth. And Prabhupada explains in the purport that these are actually demigods being referred to. There's a demigod of the bright and dark fortnight, a demigod of the smoke, and so on and so forth. So as one satisfies these demigods, then he's ushered into a higher dimension. And then that demigod takes you to the threshold of another dimension. And there's another demigod. And then you satisfy him and he takes you. And then this way, according to Vedanta Sutra, there's 14 levels before one comes to Brahmalok. But even Brahmalok, in the 14th dimension, it's a good title for science fiction novel. But even Brahmalok is simply only a material dimension. So, therefore, we worship Krishna. Because Krishna, he's at once in the transcendental dimension. So by worshipping him, then by his grace one surpasses all these 14 higher material dimensions in one step. Not only that, it turns out, if you read Srila Sanatana Goswami's Brihad Bhagavatamrita, turns out that there are even transcendental dimensions. There are even spiritual dimensions represented. The markers are the different Vaikuntha planets. So there is the Vaikuntha dimension, there is the Ayodhya dimension, there is the Dwarka dimension, the Mathura dimension, and Goloka Vrindavan. At least these three, or at least, what did I say? It's about 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5. At least these 5, we can say, are mentioned very clearly in the Shastras, and actually it must be unlimited spiritual dimensions, because there are unlimited Vaikuntha planets. No end to them. So Lord Krishna, his is the Paramdam, the topmost. So not only by worshipping Lord Krishna do we surpass all material dimensions, which are very fascinating for the materialists, and they get hung up in them. They get stuck in some higher dimension for a while, and then they get dropped back down. This is all explained in Bhagavad Gita. But not only do we surpass them, but we actually go to the supreme, the topmost transcendental dimension, where Lord Krishna himself is personally enjoying his eternal Nitya Leela. Okay? Any questions? Yes?
You said there's 14 dimensions before coming to Brahmaloka.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder, is it that they have to go step by step, or they go, like if they worship Lord Brahma directly, they can go through Brahma?
Those who worship Lord Brahma, because Brahma is the chief of the mystics who follow the Vedic path. And they follow the path called, in one place Prabhupada refers to it as Brahmapanta, means the path to Brahmaloka. And it is a path by which one traverses the Milky Way. I don't know if you can see the Milky Way here in Sweden. I suppose on a very clear, they don't often have clear nights like that up in these parts of the world. But in Mayapur, anyway, you can generally see every night. And you have to get up early in the morning. You don't see it soon after the sun goes down. But if you get up very early in the morning, like about 1:32, on a nice crystal clear night, you'll see the Milky Way very. Looks like diamonds were thrown. Many diamonds were thrown across the sky. So it is a pathway, panta. So that in order to, you see, that's the qualification of it. Someone who is a worshipper of Brahma then must be able to traverse this Brahma panta, because one can approach Brahma only by this mystic Vedic process. Therefore Srila Prabhupada says the yogis, they're worshippers of Brahma, they take shelter of Brahma in Brahmaloka, and they can go with Brahma when the universe dissolves. It is only because they have taken shelter of Brahma that they're able to go with Brahma to Mahavishnu. Otherwise, on their own power, they cannot go. So what these mystics have to do is first to get to Brahma, and therefore they have to go to this. They have to, go through the whole hierarchy, because it's like Frank Sinatra once said. Frank Sinatra there was a woman reporter who wanted to interview him. And she was trying to get in contact with him, but she couldn't. And then later, she wrote some article. It was a kind of a critical article that he thinks he's so important that I wanted to write a story about him, but I couldn't get it. And then so he was asked about this later. This lady reporter wanted to see you, and he just said, "She's got to talk to the guy who talks to the guy who talks to the guy who talks to me." So one has to go through the hierarchy. That's the point. In order to approach Frank, so what to speak of someone who's actually exalted, like Lord Brahma. One has to go to all the different doorkeepers. Yes?
The super soul is sometimes described as four-armed, and sometimes it's described he has his hands everywhere, legs everywhere, and so on. Is this an example of this bewilderment because of different dimensions?
Yes, precisely. Because when it says that his arms and legs are everywhere and his eyes and ears are everywhere, it means that the super soul is simultaneously within the heart of every living being, and he is Rishikesh. He is the controller of all senses all over the universe. His senses are the composite senses of the whole universe, of every living entity. So, and Prabhupada mentions in the 6th canto, there's this purport to a verse, Dehendriya Prana Manastyohi. So there, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that, he says very clearly that actually Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Lord, he's the only doer, he's the only actor in the whole universe. That nobody else is even doing anything. Because nobody else has that power over Prakriti. You see, I often give this example about raising your hand. How do we do this? We're not doing it, actually. We have the desire, but unless Lord Vishnu approves that desire, in the heart, unless he confirms it. Yes, you can lift your hand. My hand is not going to go anywhere. You see, I can desire and desire all I like. But unless Lord Vishnu says, yes, the hand should go up, unless he gives the nod to Prakriti, to Durga Devi, who is actually she's the string puller of the three modes of material nature. So then that arm is not going to go anywhere. So actually he's the only one who's operating all the senses anywhere, from the tiniest little germ up to Lord Brahma. He's the only one who moves their senses. And he's moving according, you see, it's a very interesting arrangement. He's moving according to their desire, and they get all the reactions. And he's giving even, for those who are more intelligent at least, for those who are a little more introspective, he's giving from within the heart. There's conscience, this term conscience. You want to do something, and you feel something in the heart that says, don't do this. But then we say, I'm going to do it anyway. Okay. And you must accept the reaction. He's giving us that. Don't do this. As we push past that cautionary advice within the heart, then gradually we become so covered by ignorance that we can no longer hear it. We can only hear the false ego. The false ego that just confirms any nonsense desire we may have. Yeah, that's good. Any other question? Yeah?
This point that Dhruva went back to spiritual birth, but he has still this, he's on the planet Dhruva Loka, and how can that be the spiritual birth? Because he's still in this universe.
Yes. How can this monitor be the same thing, showing the same thing as that monitor? That's the answer. It is a spiritual planet in the material world, as Prabhupada explains. That's what it is. It's a Vaikuntha planet within the circle of this universe. It is called Dhruva Loka. Dhruva means everlasting. So even when this universe is destroyed, that place remains as it is. And it is... Anyway, it's interesting, you see, because Dhruva, it's very interesting. Last September I was speaking with Burijan Prabhu, and we were talking about devotional service, different levels of devotional service, and he brought up about Dhruva Maharaj's devotional service. And he said, he was explaining how that Dhruva was awarded this planet because of his desire. He wanted a kingdom. And that is actually a material desire. That is actually a material desire. And it was very strong in his heart. And so, Burijan, he even said like this, and this might require a little contemplation to really understand clearly. But he said, actually, Dhruva Maharaj, he was a materialist. Meaning that he had this very strong desire. He was a materialist. But in this determination, he was so determined to get this, that he focused his determination upon the Supreme Lord. And so the Supreme Lord, because Dhruva, he was not just a materialist, obviously. He's a devotee, but with a very strong, very determined material desire. So therefore, the Lord, taking compassion upon Dhruva Maharaj, said, all right, I will give you a planet where this desire of yours will be fully satisfied. Just like the materialist, we often say that materialists, they don't want temporary happiness. They want permanent happiness. but they can't get it. But Dhruva Maharaj got it. And this is how powerful, the whole point is to show how powerful devotional service is. This is an actually impossible desire. Impossible. It's impossible. We always tell everyone, in our classes, don't expect this. Dhruva Maharaj got it. It was actually a material desire. And he was awarded a place by the Lord where he could experience it's simultaneously a spiritual planet. But he's actually there realizing the fulfillment in eternity of a material desire. So that shows the power of devotional service. So therefore, you find Srila Prabhupada makes interesting statements, and these are, again, this is I mentioned this about the two video monitors, because if you look through Prabhupada's purports and find what he says about Dhruva Loka, devotees have asked me these questions, whether this is really a spiritual planet, whether Dhruva Maharaj was a pure devotee or not, because it seems a bit equivocal how Prabhupada explains this. Because sometimes he's saying, this is a Vaikuntha planet, sometimes he's saying this is a place where devotees who are not perfect go. They go to this loka. And so again, it's the two video monitors there. The mind is racing back and forth trying to understand. But you must understand just this much, that this is higher dimensional. And therefore, with this mind, we're never going to come to the right answer, just by speculating. Yes?
Guru Maharaj, in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, when Gopakumara goes back to join him, also passes through all these material and spiritual dimensions. So is this something unique for his Leela, or do other devotees also go like in this path of yours?
Well, Srila, this is a novel. Srila Sanatana Goswami wrote a novel called Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And one of the purposes of this novel is because novels that captivate the mind of simple people. So one of the purposes was to educate us as to these higher dimensions and even the transcendental dimensions. So we need not conclude that because this character in this novel went through all this, that we will also go through it all. It is stated by Srila Prabhupada in connection with Dhruva Maharaj in a purport that Dhruva Maharaj was able, the Vishnu Dutas, I think the purport is coming up very soon, the Vishnu Dutas transported Dhruva Maharaj by way of all the material lokas to his own, the Dhruva Loka or Vaikuntha, so that he could see all those lokas going by, and he met all those deities that I mentioned. Actually, again, this is another question. Someone actually asked this question, whether Dhruva Maharaj had to meet these deities and whether they were giving him permission, which is what happens for the mystics and for the punya karmis, that they have to open the gates. So the question was, well, Dhruva Maharaj was a pure devotee, or was he? Another confusion. But anyway, but if he's under the shelter of Lord Vishnu, being directed by the Vishnu Dutas, then why does it appear that these deities in the higher material realms were permitting him to go to the next higher? But actually, Prabhupada explains, because he is celebrated all over the universe as a pure devotee. Those demigods wanted to meet him. That's all. They wanted to meet him and shake his hand. They were very satisfied with him. So it was a kind of formality, you see. Just like if an important man, say, an important man comes to a city, then there's a ceremony. I don't know about here, but in some places in the States, anyway, there's a ceremony where the mayor gives, it's a ceremony, there's a ceremonial key, the key to the city. I think it comes from some old Middle Ages type thing. But anyway, this important man, he's presented on a big velvet cushion with much fanfare, the key to the city, which means anywhere you want to go here, you're free, you're welcome. All doors are open to you. So it's just a sign of respect. So these demigods and Chandraloka and Suryaloka, onward, upward, they were giving Dhruva Maharaj the key to the loka. Yes, you can come in. Anything you want to, a sample, enjoy, please, be our guest. So he was being welcomed in that way, on his way to Dhruva Loka. Anything else? Yes?
You were saying in this seminar, I don't remember which way to Srimad Bhagavatam, the mention of commentary to that sutra, that devotee, if he has some desire for a certain place, to enjoy a certain place in the Gaya region, but when he passes back home, I think will arrange to see exactly this place which where he desires to be. And he will think, oh, this looks nice, and he'll feel that
Yes,
there is such place.
exactly. It's like one might be thinking that Bulgaria is a hellish place, but Sweden is very nice. So then the Lord can arrange you take your next birth in Sweden. And because Bulgaria is just, actually Bulgaria is, it's just showing us the future of Kali Yuga. And that future will catch up here too. So one will take birth in Sweden in the future when Sweden will be just like Bulgaria. And then in that birth one will be thinking, oh, I have to get out of Sweden, go to some nicer place. Maybe at that time Bulgaria will be the nice place. And one will be thinking, how can I get to Bulgaria? Such a wonderful country. And I'm trapped here in Sweden. I like that answer. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.